Hello, Wheel of Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. How you doing today, Tim?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing well. We have a new logo.
Yes, we do.
So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but if you've been on Twitter, we have a new logo, and our show notes page, album art thing should have our new logo. So yay for us.
Yay.
We're the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru, so it looks like a drive-thru sign.
Yeah, so we don't have fries, but we do have Pod-Thrus.
Yay! So before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you've read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today we will discuss chapters 8 and 9 of The Great Hunt, where Rand is brought before the Emerald seat, and it's finally time to leave Feldara. Chapter 8 is called The Dragon Reborn, and the icon is the Dragon Fang.
Here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. Rand is taking the long walk to the Emerald suite, fretting the whole way. As they approach the women's apartments, Lan suddenly commands Cat crosses the courtyard, and Rand snaps into the relaxed, arrogant saunter he has been taught. After being escorted to the Aes Sedai, they have a brief exchange with Lan, and she tells Lan that he can't go in with Rand, and that his lion cub will be safe enough by himself. Before the doors swing shut behind Rand, he hears Lan's voice in his ear. Taishar, Manetheren. Inside the room, he finds Moraine, Varen, and Swan. He tries to stick to the instructions Lan gave him, much to the frustration of the three Aes Sedai. They talk about him as if he's not there, and Swan asks Moraine about his sword. Moraine reveals that she knows a lot more about Tam Althor's story than Rand was aware. Swan tells Varen to take Rand's sword to test it, and Rand angrily tells them, "No way, Jose." Swan says that she's happy to see that he has some fire in him, and tells him that Mat and Perrin are going to join Ingtar on his hunt for the horn, assuming that the dagger will be found with it. She gives Rand the option to go along or to stay on alone. Moraine, Egwene, and Nynaeve will be leaving with the Amyrlin when her party goes. Rand is confused by his unexpected freedom and chooses to ride with Ingtar. Swan then tells him that she knows he can channel. He says that he didn't mean to, and he won't do it again, but she tells them that he doesn't have the choice, and he needs to learn to control it. Rand questions why they're talking to him instead of gentling him, and Swan tells them that he's the Dragon Reborn. Rand says that he will not be set up as a false dragon for the tower to use, repeating the names Bealzman told him in his dreams. Swan insists that he's the real dragon, and instructs Moraine to tell him the story of the day he was born and the foretelling that started her on the path to find him. As she speaks, Rand remembers what Tam said during his fever dreams on Winter Night. Rand clutches to denial with both hands, refusing to believe and repeating that he won't be used. He tells them the Dark One is dead, and Swan calls him a fool and talks about his destiny. He asks what they're planning to do to him, and Swan replies that they'll do nothing because the prophecies must be fulfilled. He must be free to go his own way. Only those in the room know who he really is. Swan warns Rand that other Aes Sedai might not feel the same way. He leaves, and the three women worry about what they've released upon the world. Nynaeve can feel a storm coming that has nothing to do with the weather and is uncomfortable about it now that she knows it has to do with the power. She sees Rand leaving the women's apartments and tries to catch him, but is waylaid by people trying to speak with her, and she loses him. She worries about what the Amyrlin did to him and feels guilty that she wasn't able to protect her people as wisdom. She comes upon Lan, and they have a not-yet lover's quarrel. He gives her his signet ring, the ring of the Malkiri kings. She tries to refuse such a gift, but he will not take no for an answer. And suddenly we're in a rom-com, and I'm not mad at it. After Lan leaves, Nynaeve turns to go and finds Moraine standing there. Nynaeve demands to know what she's done to Rand and why he was taken to the Amyrlin. They verbally spar for a bit, and Moraine deftly maneuvers her into sticking to the plan to go to the tower. Once again, Nynaeve swears vengeance against Moraine. Later, Nynaeve checks on Egwene's packing and tells her that she doesn't have to call her wisdom anymore. They're just two women a long way from home. They're interrupted by someone coming in to say that Rand is causing a stir, trying to enter the women's apartments uninvited to see Egwene, and would she please come out to settle him. Rand wants to make sure that she is healed from the previous night's attack. She wants to make sure that Rand's okay and that the Amyrlin didn't hurt him. They say their goodbyes, wishing things were different, but knowing that they're going in very different directions. They'll each have to take care of themselves from now on.
Lan and Rand walking to see the Emerald is so much fun. It's like a lion and his cub walking together.
Yeah.
Like the lion calm and collected, and the cub nervous about everything. Rand is even nervous about the implications when the men they pass shout Taishar Manatherin. The comedy and the tension are balanced really well here. Like Rand is freaking out and Lan is solid as a rock.
Totally. So regarding Cat crosses the courtyard.
Yeah.
The book says, he clung to the stance Lan had given him as he would have to a floating branch in a flood. Holding it was the only thing that kept him from turning tail and running. Lan knows exactly what he's doing, and he's giving Rand every chance he can to get through this situation with as much pride as possible.
He gonna need it too.
Absolutely.
So as Lan and Rand are escorted through the women's apartments, even though Rand is floundering and nothing is spelled out for us, I get the sense of an established formality here. Like, this is one of those things I love about this universe. You know that what you are seeing is steeped in some rich and meaningful protocol or ritual or something, but you don't need to know what that protocol is or what it means to know that it's significant. Like, it just adds a little bit of weight and character to the scene without getting too bogged down in detail. I love this line that Lan says when he's presenting Rand. He is a man, Leanne Sedai, Lan said. No more, no less. We are what we are. There's so much packed into this one statement, but what really got me this time is the we. Lan is calling Rand a man, and including him in the same category as Lan himself.
Oh, yeah.
Lan is presenting him this way to the keeper of the chronicles. He's not a simple farm boy anymore. Lan is awesome.
He super, super is. And I could not heart Lan more than when Rand has to go in alone and he hears Lan's voice in his ear, fierce and strong, saying, Taishar Manatherin.
Right?
You know, Lan is a stoic guy and usually plays things very close to the vest. But he really has his heart out for everyone to see with Rand here, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rand enters, and Swan is flanked on either side by Moraine and Varen. There's some serious Francis Ford Coppola stuff going on here. Quote, it was the woman in the tall chair behind the wide table who held his eyes. The curtains had been partially drawn over the arrow slits, but the gaps let in enough light behind her to make her face hard to see. He still recognized her, though, the Amerlin seat. This is the Godfather for sure.
You know, I actually didn't even connect that until you pointed it out to me, and I'm like,
so intimidating.
Wow, you're absolutely right. That I'm never going to see the scene the same way again.
I can't wait to see this scene played out on the TV show.
Yeah,
like it better be dripping with drama.
Oh yeah.
So Rand keeps saying that he stands ready, and I love that Swan calls him out on that. He has no idea what he's even saying. You know, like he's play acting at being a soldier or a warder, but he doesn't understand what any of it means.
Right.
You know, he says, quote, I'll stand because the watch is not yet done. But those are just words to him. Like he doesn't understand any of it. So I'm really glad that Swan kind of questions like, oh, really, boy?
Yeah. And we learned the story behind how Tam Althor got his sword. Like, he joined the army of Ilion and served in the White Cloak War and the last two wars of Tyr, and of course, the Ale War.
Right.
He rose to be a blade master and the second captain of the Companions, which is an elite group in the soldiers of the Ilion army. So, ninja status confirmed. And there's no way Rand is going to let them take that sword from him.
Not a chance. Swan keeps calling Rand boy.
Yeah.
She's trying to put his back up and keep him on his toes. And it's an effective way of robbing him of any power he might be trying to gain from following Lan's guidance and keeping it firmly on the side of the Aes Sedai. It's an ugly tactic that's been widely used throughout history to keep people down.
Yeah, agreed. But effective.
Very effective.
I kind of like the progression of Rand's reaction to the idea that he can leave on his own choosing. Like, first he reacts to not wanting to play the game that Moraine has set out for him. But his very next thought after that is he can't let Matt die. Something about this realization that Matt could die soon kind of brings him back to his old self for a second. Mm-hmm. That same Rand that we saw on the road to Camelin, who took care of Matt when he was blinded by the lightning flash.
Right.
And I think it's kind of a shame that Rand doesn't just tell Matt that he's sorry for being a dumbass. Like, if he had just said, dude, I can't stand by and let you die. I'm going to help you figure this out. I think Matt and Perrin would have accepted that as well.
Yeah.
But this is the wheel of time, and communication between people is not something that happens, really.
No, we have to keep the drama.
Right.
The petty little miscommunications. It's what it's all about. So Moraine gives us the old saying, a bird cannot teach a fish to fly, nor a fish teach a bird to swim. And then we have Varen in this lovely moment, completely distracting from the conversation by deconstructing it. Quote, I've always thought that was a bad saying, Varen said suddenly. There are birds that dive and swim, and in the Sea of Storms are fish that fly with long fins that stretch out as wide as your outstretched arms and beaks like swords that can pierce. Her words trailed off, and she became flustered. Moraine and the Amyrlin seat were staring at her without expression. End quote. I love this for two reasons. First, it's just adorable Brownsby and Browns overanalyzing everything. I can relate. But also, Varen's interruption gives Rand a chance to center himself and form the flame and the void.
Yeah.
Swan can't bat him around like a cat toy. I don't know if Varen did this on purpose, but she gave Rand the opportunity to stand strong.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
I don't know if she did it on purpose. It's very possible that she just got lost in, I have an interesting thing to add to the conversation, but it's possible that she saw Rand floundering and wanted to throw him a rope because for all the crazy crap that Varen is, she's a decent person.
Yeah, she is. Okay, so Rand gets the bomb dropped on him that he is the Dragon Reborn. Mm-hmm. To his credit, Rand stays calm while trying to respond. He doesn't want to be the Dragon Reborn. And in his suspicion that he's going to be controlled by the Tar Valon, he drops his own bomb on Siuan and lets her know that he knows the tower has been controlling false dragons for years. I just really like how revealing this knowledge puts Siuan at a loss for words for just a second, which is very hard to do.
True. Rand says they got the names of the false dragons from Tom, but really he's just repeating the names Balsman told him in his dreams. And I can't help but flash back to the Eye of the World when Moraine tells him a tool made for a purpose is not demeaned by being used for that purpose, but a man who believes the father of lies demeans himself.
Right.
I'm not saying that Rand should trust Aes Sedai, because he probably shouldn't, but he shouldn't be listening to Balsman.
Absolutely
come on,
not.
dude. Figure it out.
Right. The story that Moraine tells about how Tam found Rand as a baby and how Rand really is the fulfillment of the prophecy is done very well. Mm-hmm. The way Jordan switches back and forth between Rand's recounting of his memories of Tam's feverish ravings to Moraine and Siuan explaining what really happened, it's just timed well and pulls you into Rand's state of mind. Mm-hmm. On my first read-through, I can remember being right there with Rand. I felt confused and angry and just really mistrusting of Moraine and the Amyrlin and everyone. But now that I know how it ends, this scene is heartbreaking. Rand has been trying to deny the truth about who he is and where he comes from since almost the first chapter of The Eye of the World. Now he has one of the most powerful women in the world picking apart the last bits of denial and forcing the truth to come through. I mean, living in denial is bad, don't get me wrong, but the process of waking up from denial is never fun.
No, definitely not. And mostly, it just makes me want to reread New Spring.
Yeah, right?
I know a lot of people resented that book because Jordan wrote a prequel before finishing the series. But now that we know how everything ends, I have much more appreciation for New Spring. There were a couple plot points that I could have done without. Yeah. But for the most part, I really enjoyed that book.
It was fun. It really was.
Yeah. We might have to do, a couple bonus episodes on New Spring.
We might.
Not a chapter by chapter like we do with the rest of the books. But, hey, maybe as a Patreon perk if we ever get Patreon up.
It's on the list. Maybe. Possibly.
It's a good book. I like the book. And it's short.
So we get this quote. An anchor is not demeaned by being used to hold a boat.
I don't understand fishing metaphors.
Fishing metaphors aside, Suan's comment here is something that I know I need to be reminded of from time to time. Like, this was especially true when I was in my early 20s. Just because you are in a situation where you're not able to do what you want to do does not mean that what you're doing is any less valuable. Mm-hmm. Not exactly the same thing Suan is saying here, I know, but it's still true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The takeaway I have every time I read this whole interaction is this. Be careful of how you let people prejudice your perception of something. This whole series may have played out very differently if Ishmael had not gotten into Rand's dreams and filled him with suspicions about the White Tower.
Right, true. Yeah. Because he really does keep coming back to that dream and not wanting to be used by the White Tower.
Yeah, I won't be your false dragon is like the refrain that he says, especially in his early ones. And then later on...
And then, I'm no easy ace.
Exactly. I'm no easy... Yeah, yep.
Oh, Rand. I love how ominous the tag at the end of this scene is. Varen realizes that no matter how strong or wild Rand gets, they can't gentle him.
Yeah.
They're all wigging out because they've let a rabid dog loose on the world, and God help them for it. We're only in book 2.
Yeah, well, just wait.
He's going to get real crazy.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Like you do.
Switching to Nynaeve. I like the description of Nynaeve's weather sense and how it's getting mixed up with her sense of the big storm coming. Mm-hmm. I laughed this time as I read because book 11 is called The Gathering Storm. It only took 10 books to get there, but the big storm that was in the distance did eventually show up, and it was huge.
Yeah. I feel so sorry for Nynaeve as she struggles with her identity as wisdom and her guilt over abandoning Emond's Field.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, like she still feels the responsibility to her people. And she knows that she's let the village down by being gone for so long. And I think that's a big part of why she tells Egwene in a few pages not to call her wisdom any longer. She doesn't feel like she deserves the title anymore. And of course, she has trouble letting go, which is why in the very next breath she tells Eggs, don't try to comfort the wisdom, girl. And we'll get to see her guilt manifest during her accepted test later. But she's just so torn here before she finally lets go of her role of wisdom for good, you know?
Yeah, well, it's a hard thing to let go of.
It is, you know? Like, she had a place of standing, a place of power, but more importantly, a place of responsibility. And she took that responsibility really seriously.
Yeah.
Those are her people. And it is every bit her job to take care of them and protect them. And I mean, she's not wrong when she's guilty about abandoning them. She did abandon them. And true, she did so because this was the path that she was on. And in some ways, it's very possible that the pattern demanded it of her.
But it still means she abandoned
But, I mean, she did abandon her village. So the guilt is real. Like, she's not making this up. Like, she really did do wrong. So it makes sense that she's so torn about it.
Yeah.
I feel bad for her.
Poor Nynaeve. It struck me this time around that before Nynaeve learns to channel, she thinks about her herbs to focus on a situation. Like, her mini rant about how she would treat a couple who is moonstruck and acting foolish is actually a way for her to take a break from what she's feeling and focus on getting to a resolution.
Okay.
Nynaeve and Lan, like almost everyone in relationship in Wheel of Time, they do not communicate very well.
No.
But just because you can't communicate doesn't mean that you don't find ways to break through to the other person. Mm-hmm. Like, Lan's ring is much more than a gift. It's not just a promise to come to her aid if she needs it. Lan is promising to come to her regardless of anything else. Mm-hmm. This means that he's promising to put her above his bond to Moraine.
Right.
This is some serious stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I love how they're just always trying to out-stubborn each other.
Yeah.
I think my favorite line in this whole book is Nynaeve thinking, if I cry now, I will kill myself. Like after Lan gives her the ring.
Yeah.
Hashtag relatable.
Oy.
And then when he calls her Mashiara, I think that's how you pronounce it. It means beloved of heart and soul, but also love lost beyond regaining.
Yeah.
All the feels.
Aww.
And then Moraine. Moraine always manages to come out on top of whatever situation she's in. And this interaction with Nynaeve is no exception. The best, though, is, quote, have you decided to forgo Tarvalon yourself? If your own use of the power is not schooled, you'll never be able to use it against me. Nynaeve spun to face the Aes Sedai, her jaw dropping. She could not help it. I don't know what you're talking about. Did you think I did not know, child? Well, as you wish it. I take it that you are coming to Tarvalon? Yes, I thought so.
You read it so snarky. It's awesome.
It is snarky. I'm not. That is in there. I'm not putting it in
Oh,
there.
no, there's definitely snark there. It's just, you read it so well.
Thank you.
The fact that Egwene is questioning for the first time the assumption that everyone in her village had that she and Rand would end up married is the first indication that she realizes the relationship can't last. Mm-hmm. This is the first time she has had to say that she did not intend to marry him. And it can be scary to hear yourself say something for the first time out loud that runs counter to the way you've always assumed things would be or should be. Mm-hmm. It will take a couple of books for Egwene to fully let go of this, but this is kind of the turning point for her and how she sees her relationship with Rand changing.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think this moment is the first time that they both realize, like, for real, that what they had always assumed wasn't going to happen. You know, like, I think they're really understanding that they are not going to end up together.
And I don't know if everybody gets this, because growing up in a small town, there's definitely like high school power couples. And,
right.
and you know, growing up in a small church or growing up in a small town, you get the sense that, well, those two have always been together. Of course they're going to grow up and get married and have babies and all this other stuff. But, you know, being that person in that relationship when you get to your last year of high school or you get that first year of college and all of a sudden you realize, oh, wait, this isn't going to work, is it? It's kind of profound.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we witnessed that when we were...
in North Carolina, yeah.
Yeah, when we were youth leaders in a church. Like, there were some couples that had just been together for so long, and everybody in the community assumed that they were going to grow up and get married and whatever.
Yep.
And God help them if they decided not to, you know, because there's just so much outside pressure.
Yeah.
And... you know, at least in Rand and Egwene's case, because they were able to leave Emond's Field, they were given the option.
Yeah,
but if they had stayed in Emond's Field, I mean, really, their destiny was laid out for them, and they, come hell or high water, they were going to have to be together. So, it's tough.
It is.
We should maybe back off on our young people and let them
know.
make their own mistakes and decisions. And
maybe figure out who they are before we pressure them into getting married.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe who, whatever.
And I mean, this is really more of a small town problem.
Yeah, it is.
I think, at least these days. But it definitely still happens.
That brings us to the end of Chapter 8. Before we get to Chapter 9, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by Alan Mandragoran, Life Coach Extraordinaire. Sit back and soak it in as Lan instructs you on all you need to know to be a man of this world. Upon completion of the 3-month course, graduates will receive an enamel pin with the emblem of their homeland. Alan Mandragoran, the guru you didn't know you needed, but couldn't live without. All sales are final, no refunds. In some cases, side effects may include gentling or death.
Chapter 9 of The Great Hunt is called Leave Takings, and the icon is the flame of Tar Valon.
The courtyard is buzzing with activity as the two parties prepare to leave. Rand receives a mixed reception from the Shanarian soldiers as he mounts his horse. Rand is surprised to see that Loyal will be joining the hunt, saying that he can't pass up a chance to see history weaving itself around Tabaran. Mat and Perrin show up, and Rand immediately tries to apologize. Mat is not in a forgiving mood and pulls Perrin away. Loyal explains that Rand's fancy coat is not helping his cause. Rand apologizes to Loyal for being a jerk, and Loyal graciously accepts. Lan pulls Rand aside to talk to him about sheathing the sword. He tells Rand that there will come a time when you must achieve a goal at all costs. It may come in attack or in defense, and the only way will be to allow the sword to be sheathed in your own body. Rand thinks that's crazy talk, but Lan tells him that he will know if the moment ever comes. Rand overhears Agelmar trying to get the Emerald to stay longer, but she refuses. She sends a warder off at top speed, and Loyal tells Rand that he heard a messenger was being sent all the way to Almouth Plain to investigate rumors of trouble in that part of the land. The Emerald approaches Ingtar's party to give a speech. She shocks them all by explaining that the horn can't be allowed to fall into Dark Friend hands because the heroes are bound to the horn, not the light, so they will answer the call no matter who blows it. Rand feels the unseen watcher again and jerks his horse around to look for him. As he moves, an arrow flies past his face, nicks the Emerald in the arm, and kills a man who is passing behind her. Agelmar is beside himself with shame for failing to protect her, but she's not bothered and tells him to calm down. She subtly infers to Rand that she was probably not the intended target. Swan finishes her blessing and sends off Ingtar's party. Mat and Perrin refuse to stay anywhere near Rand or let him apologize further. A man rides up and joins them, and Ingtar introduces him as Huron, the Sniffer. He can smell violence done by men and shadow spawn, which makes him an excellent tracker. Instead of aiming toward the Blight, as expected, Huron points them south to follow the Trollocs and Myrddraal and something even worse, as he calls it. Ilion is in full celebration mode with the calling of the great hunt for the horn. Bael Domon is on his way through the stifling heat to meet men who might want to kill him. He enters the common room of an inn called Easing the Badger, and 3 Corinian men are there for him. They offer him 1,000 gold marks to sail to Mayene with a sealed parchment and fetch a passenger whose identity they will not disclose. It was 4 times the amount of the last offer, and Domon accepts the advance, agreeing to sail at first light. Someone was trying to get him to sail east. He's sure that Dark Friends and Trollocs are after him, but he doesn't understand why. Yarin, Domon's second, comes in to tell Domon that one of his men is dead. All 3 previous times he was made an offer, Domon refused, and one of his men were killed. He is confused why his man was killed this time after he accepted the offer. Yarin tells him that the man looks like he was tortured for information, and that men tried to board Spray before the dock watch ran them off, and his room that he rented had been tossed. Domon tells Yarin to rouse the men. They're setting sail as soon as possible. He returns to Spray, and as soon as the men are on board, orders the ship to be brought out to sea. Domon opens the parchment and reads a letter, supposedly from the king of Carrion, saying that the bearer of the letter is a murdering dark friend and a thief who should be immediately hanged, and his possessions should be handed over to their representative. Domon liked to collect old things, and he had gotten some new items in the last port he was at before Dark Friend started chasing him. Domon believes the item they are after is a thick Quendiar disc, the size of a man's hand, half white and half black, a sinuous line separating the colors, the ancient symbol of Aes Sedai from before the breaking of the world. He has no idea why they'd be after the disc, and he doesn't want to find out. He directs Yarin to sail the ship west toward Tommen Head, where he thinks he'll be safe.
Loyal always for the win.
Mm-hmm.
He is so huge that he makes the Durham stallion look like a small horse. Like I get this image of Loyal riding on a Clydesdale and it looking like he's riding on a pony.
Right, totally.
And then he immediately accepts Rand's apology when he realizes Rand really is sorry for what he said. Loyal's just awesome.
Totally.
Rand and Lan get a chance to talk for the first time after Rand is called to see the Emerald Seat. And Rand's reaction is basically, dude, you set me up, man. Or at least that's how it plays out in my mind.
Yeah. So Lan tells Rand about sheathing the sword, when the price is worth the gain and there is no other choice left to you. And again, we get Jordan's habit of foreshadowing by 2x4.
Right.
Before you leave, let me tell you this really important thing, the hardest lesson of all, just in case it ever comes up. Hint, hint. Say like in 36 chapters from now.
Right.
He gets better at this as the series goes on, but the foreshadowing is really clunky in these first few books.
Just a little.
But I will give credit where credit is due and say that sheathing the sword was used beautifully in A Memory of Light.
Yeah.
That scene redeems any clunky foreshadowing that came before it.
100%. Swan gets shot by an arrow and shrugs it off like, it's only a flesh wound. I'll just pour some beer on it and it'll be fine.
Yup.
The woman is tough as nails. Like, granted, one of her Aes Sedai could heal her in a second. But this highlights the idea that Aes Sedai are not indestructible.
Right.
They are actually vulnerable to ranged attacks or attacks where they're caught by surprise. As we get more into the world of channeling, we'll see the hubris that comes with the ability to wield the power. Many channelers start to feel untouchable, but we will see over and over again that this is not the case.
Right, totally. So Rand keeps trying to apologize to Matt and Perrin, but Matt won't stay anywhere near him long enough to give him the chance. We've already mentioned that Rand was a huge jerk, and he's definitely in the wrong here. But Matt's also being an asshat. Like, I don't know how much of Matt's mind and personality are still affected by the dagger. He's been healed up to a point, but not completely. So I don't know how much of this is the dagger's influence and how much of this is just Matt being the worst.
Yeah.
Like, he's pretty terrible throughout this entire book. It's not until he's fully healed in The Dragon Reborn and stops being an ass and decides to be awesome instead. And I can't wait because this Matt stinks.
Agreed. This Matt stinks.
Like, what do you think? Do you think this is the dagger? Or do you think Matt's just a jackass?
I want to say that Matt's just a young jackass.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because when he gets healed later, like, he gets these memories too. And I think part of the reason Matt
perspective.
Yes, like Matt has this perspective of multiple lives of memories that kind of like temper his...
Oh my gosh, that totally makes sense.
I'm really glad we get to meet Huron. He becomes really important for Perrin specifically because he also has an ability that's mostly misunderstood. Some Aes Sedai believe it comes from the Dark One, while others do not. It's obvious over the rest of the book that Huron could not be further from a Dark Friend.
Totally.
And is able to use his talent for good. Perrin needs this, and I think it helps him realize that his talent is not of the power or from the Dark One. So being a sniffer is like having the worst part of the Wolf Brother talent, and only that part. When Huron describes how strong the smell is that they're tracking, and how he can almost taste the scent of the vileness, it makes me want to gag.
Yeah.
Like, this is on my list of powers or talents that I would never, ever want to have.
I also just love how sweet Huron is. And how Rand keeps trying to tell him that he isn't a lord, but Huron can't seem to grasp it.
Yeah.
It's like, my lord, Rand.
It's the coat. It's the coat, I tell you.
Yeah. It's also pretty ominous when he says that they will follow something worse than Trollocs and Meritral. This early in the story, you're thinking, what could be worse?
Right. And we get a new point of view from everyone's favorite pirate. Bail Doman is out for a stroll on his way to meet some people who are trying to kill him, like you do. I like the bar room negotiation scene where he clearly does not trust anyone, but he also clearly knows how to handle himself. The people he meets here are so out of their league, they don't even realize it.
Yeah. I also love how in the Southlands, the people don't believe in Trollocs or other Shadow Spawn because they've never seen them.
Right?
You know, like we leave Baldara where fighting Trollocs is almost a daily thing. And then these people don't even believe that they exist. Of course, they also don't believe in snow, so there's that.
I'm sure there are places in the world where it's never snowed, and they probably don't believe in it either.
Well, hopefully in the real world, those people believe in science.
And the internet, I guess,
because they've never seen it doesn't mean like they don't believe it.
Well, before the internet existed, though, you know.
Well, there were things called books.
Nothing
pages
existed
and
prior to
words
that.
and sometimes pictures. There's these things called encyclopedias, and there's pictures, all sorts of stuff.
Is that like a Wikipedia?
Kind of similar. And there was television and cable, and like there was this thing called the Weather Channel. So even if you lived in a place that didn't snow, you could have at least like seen it on TV. That was a tangent. Where are we?
The random collection of things Doman has is very cool and interesting. Like How did he get the skull of a saber-toothed tiger?
Right?
And I wonder if the light stick is a thing of the power or some kind of chemicals from a previous age. Like, these items just make me think about all the stories that could have been attached to each one and what the swashbuckling adventures of Baal Doman would be.
That would be a really fun
I'd read
spin-off
that
series.
book. I'd totally read that book or series.
So it seems pretty obvious the Dark Friends and the Shadow Spawn are after Doman because he has one of the seals of the Dark One's prison.
Right.
Doman bought the seal thinking that it was just another piece of Quendiar left over from the Age of Legends from a shady merchant who didn't know what he had. The question is, how did the bad guys know about that? Like, according to the story that we get here, it was just some random dude who, I mean, Doman thinks he probably stole a lot of the items that he had, and he had no idea what he had, like the significance of what he had. And Doman doesn't know that it's a seal. He just thought it was a relic from the Age of Legends. So if Doman doesn't understand what it is, and the guy he bought it from doesn't understand what it is, how did the Dark Friends know enough to chase after Baal Doman?
I have no evidence to support this.
Okay.
But the way I see this unfolding is, like, Baal Doman assumes that the guy stole it off of somebody or someplace or something. Mm-hmm. So wherever he obtained it from, he obtained it through ill gains.
Probably.
Which means that somebody who had it previously knew what it was for or was guarding it or something. So when it got stolen, that started a search for the Dark Friends trying to get it. Because the Dark Friends are going to want a seal of the Dark One's prison too, trying to break it, most likely. Or at least passing it down until they can figure out how to do it. Quendalar is unbreakable, so it'd be a thing. And again, I'm just spinning this tale in my mind off the cuff, so I could be completely wrong here. Mm-hmm. But I just get this idea that maybe it was already belonged to a Dark Friend, or maybe even one of the Forsaken, or somebody knew exactly what it was and what it needed to be used for, and it got stolen from that person. Mm-hmm. And the merchant that Baal Doman bought it from is the one who stole it. Mm-hmm. So that's why they would know to look for it.
Tracked down the merchant who stole it and then like tortured it out of him.
I sold it to this pirate. Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I guess that's the most feasible explanation, but we never get a proper explanation, right? Like, we have no idea how they found Baal Doman.
Correct. And again, this comes back to, let's see the swashbuckling adventures of Baal Doman.
True.
That ends chapters 8 and 9 of The Great Hunt. Join us next week for chapters 10 and 11, where the hunt for the horn begins in earnest.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts these days. If you would leave us a positive review, it could really help us out. You can tweet us at WhatPodThru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com and let us know your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.